Hey guys, welcome back. There's a story that a lot of people know parts of, but up until 1 or 2 weeks ago, no one knew the full story of what I'm going to share today. And for some reason, I felt like the Father was leading me now, of all times, to share this. So, with that being said, I'd like to start with a certain verse. But it's Isaiah chapter 30, verse 21. And the reason I want to start with this is because it's kind of ties together everything that I'm going to share today. So Isaiah chapter 30, verse 21 says, "Your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it,' whenever you turn to the right hand or whenever you turn to the left." That pretty much sums up what the past pretty much 5 years have been for me. All kinds of instances where I have felt the Father's leading, even if at the time I didn't realize it was the Father. Pretty much 5 years ago to the day. I was living in Ohio, and of course 2020 was a crazy year for a lot of people. And 2020 for me was very pivotal, I guess is the best way to put it. Summer of 2020 is actually when I stumbled across a documentary that led me to an obsessive research on, is the Sabbath still a thing? Long story short, I think it's ironic that this video is coming out on July 24th, 2025, because it was July 24th, 2020 at like 3 o'clock in the morning when I first heard the voice of God for the first time in my life. I was at a point in my obsessive research where I came to a crossroads. And at this point, I had scoured the Bible, Googled everything I could think of on anything, rest, Shabbat, Sabbath, whatever it was. And I was at a point where it could go either way. And so I remember kneeling next to my bed and almost like arguing with God a little bit and just being like, look, God, I don't care either way. I just need to know, is the Sabbath still a thing? And if it is, I'll follow it. And if it's not, I don't want to keep obsessing over this anymore. I just wish you would give me a straight answer. And as I am spilling all of this out to God, for the first time in my life, I heard his voice, and it took me back for a second. And I don't know if anybody else has had one of those moments, but it literally brought me to my knees. So imagine it. I'm kneeling next to my bed, talking, praying, whatever you want to call it. And out of nowhere, I hear, "How do you expect me to do anything you ask of me if you can't do the most simple thing I ask and follow me?" And at that moment, I said, "Fine, you win." And so I went from kneeling by my bed to on my face on the floor. And I was like, all right, at the time I didn't know his Hebrew name, but I was like, all right, Jesus, you win. Like, I surrender. You're my God. I will be yours. And then the following day, I remember sitting down to do my research, and I had this feeling like I should pray first. And so I said a quick prayer. I said, all right, God, this is how I put it. I said, okay, we had a deal. I said I would follow you. You promised to show me the truth. I'm asking you to hold up your end of the bargain. And I remember opening my Bible and immediately opening to Hebrews. And the first 2 verses that hit me was, if there was a change, I would have told you there remains a Sabbath rest to the people of God. And I slammed my Bible shut and I went, are you kidding me? So that was the first instance of me having a real, true encounter with God. Now, a day later was, July 25th, 2020, was my 29th birthday. Now, fast forward a few months, I'm going down this path the Father has me on. I'm learning about the Shabbat, and I'm learning about kosher, and I'm learning, all the way up to like the fullness of the gospel, Genesis to Revelation, that there was no change, that, that feast, all of it. And I remember sometime in the fall, it was between Sukkot and Hanukkah. I remember because at this point I was watching the Unlearned channel and the Grafted channel, and I was still living in Ohio at the time, and I actually had plans to come out here for Hanukkah of 2020 to stay with Lex. And I remember one day I don't remember exactly what I was doing. I was probably watching a teaching or reading the Bible or something. And this thought came to me because I was 29 and I was learning something about Yeshua, and it hit me all of a sudden. It was like, wow, I'm 29. When Yeshua was on this earth doing ministry, he was 30 and he died at 33. And when you grow up in Sunday school and you hear all these stories, you just think Jesus is this grown man, like he's a man. And then as you hit your 30s, you're like, I don't know about anybody else, but I still feel like I've got growing up to do. And so to think that in a year I'm going to be 30, I'm going to be the age my Messiah was when he was out there doing ministry and healing people and changing the world, and then he was killed. And it was almost sombering for me. And this is kind of where the story of the 33rd year starts, because I remember I was kind of thinking about this for a few days. And I came to a point where I just went, okay. And I was kind of just talking out loud to God. I'm like, okay. The part I didn't say is, as I was mulling all of this over, what hit me was, I'm like, oh my gosh, he was 30 and doing ministry, and I'm going to be 30 next year. And as I'm thinking about all this, I remember one day sitting there, and I didn't so much hear a voice. It was like this feeling inside of me, if that makes sense. And it said, you're going to die in your 33rd year. And it stopped me, and I went, what? And I heard it again, and I felt it again. I was like, you're going to die in your 33rd year. And that's what had me thinking about this for a few days. And I finally got to a point where I went, okay. I went, God, I don't know what that was. I don't know if that was you. I don't know if that was the enemy trying to scare me. I don't know if that was my own mind. But okay. If, let's say it was you, God, if I'm supposed to die in my 33rd year, then it means you have a good reason for it, God, and I trust you. And all I hope between now and then is that I've done something good in this world, that I have made a difference, that I have brought people to Yeshua. And so I kind of made peace with it at that point. And there's a reason for that, and I want to share that. So in Matthew chapter 16, I want to start in verse 24. Matthew chapter 16, we're going to do verses 24 through 27. It said, Then Jesus said to his disciples, If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man will come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he will reward each according to his works. And I also want to go over to Matthew chapter 10, verse 37. And there's a reason for it. So what we just read there, I feel like it really connects with this other passage. Matthew chapter 10, verses 37 through 39. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take up his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it. It was those passages I had in my head when I came to this, okay, so be it realization. Because isn't that what we're called to? When we choose Messiah, we're choosing to take up our cross and follow him. We're choosing to leave everything behind, leave our fishing nets there, so to speak, and follow the master. And so it was almost a no-brainer for me. It's like, I said I would follow you, and I meant it. So if I die in my 33rd year, then I trust you. So fast forward a couple years. At this point, I'm living in Oklahoma. I'm among a community of like-minded believers. The fathers brought me into fellowship. And if I'm being 100% honest, I was not as on fire at this point. I wasn't fighting my flesh as much as I should have. I had a bit of a drinking problem. I'll just say it. I had a bit of a drinking problem. I was, back to what I used to do. I'd work my job, I'd go to the bar, I'd shoot some pool. It was whatever, and I hadn't lost my faith, but I just wasn't, I was in a dry season, if that makes sense. And I know we've all been there. But I remember one day, I was just going about my business, and that thought came to me again. You're going to die in your 33rd year. And I thought about it for a second, and I just blew it off. I went, yeah, that was dumb. I don't know why I ever gave that any mind back then. That was just my crazy imagination. And I just kind of shrugged it off and just went about my life. And then during this time, it was sometime after that, our congregation was in a rental building at the time on the other side of town. And it was one of the last times we had a potluck at this specific church building. And a dear sister of mine came and sat across the table from me while we were eating. And she shared something with me. And she was like, Mike, I felt this word from the Lord. And I don't know if it's anything. All I can say is pray about it, search the scriptures. If it's nothing, great. If it is something, I feel like the Father wanted me to share this word with you. And I'm like, okay, well, what is it? And she's like, it's literally a word, Mike. She's like, I felt like I'm supposed to tell you the word abide. Like you're supposed to abide in him. And I just looked at her, I went, was there anything else? Because when we think of someone has a word for you, it's like, you're thinking like, thus saith the Lord. And that wasn't it. But it was interesting, and it stuck with me. Because I'm like, why would one word abide? And for a little bit, I kind of flipped through a few pages of scripture, and I never really did a deep study on it, but it stuck with me because I was going through a lot of ups and downs back then. Fast forward again. So at the time I received that word, it was probably I was probably 31 at the time. But fast forward to Sukkot of 2023. I would have been 32 at the time. Sukkot of 2023 was Father did a lot that year.